Well, hi guys, welcome to this Money Control live stream. You're watching Morning Trade with me, Nandita Khemka. It's a Thursday morning, plenty of cues to digest today, given the fact that we have the MPC outcome at 10 a.m. We've seen crude spike to $87 per barrel. We have the GIFT Nifty hinting at a muted to negative start for the Indian markets and lots of stocks to watch out for. Of course, if you have any stock-related queries, send them in to us on our YouTube feed and we will have them addressed by our technical expert on the show. But before we do all that, let's take a look at the top headlines at this hour. Sell-off continues on Wall Street ahead of the July Consumer Price Index report data. The Dow falls over 190 points, while the Nasdaq slides over 1% ahead of the CPI numbers. European markets, in fact, rally after Italy waters down bank windfall tax. Asian markets as well open lower, with the GIFT Nifty hinting at a negative start for the Indian market. Oil hits multi-month highs after a steep drawdown in US stockpiles, and tighter global supply offset concerns over slowing Chinese demand. Brent has now moved up to $87 a barrel. All eyes on the RBI's monetary policy decision later today. Interest rates and stance likely to be unchanged, but markets will watch out for any hawkish phrases or for any upward revision in RBI's inflation forecast. Key earnings to track today. Two-wheeler major Hero MotoCorp expected to report revenue growth of somewhere around 6.5% or thereabouts. Also watch out for results from Pidilite, Biocon, LIC and some of the others that we will be tracking throughout the day. And we also put the spotlight on stocks like Suzlon, Zee, IRCTC and BSE. Meanwhile, we also have a new IPO on the block. TVS supply chains issue opens for subscription today. Well, the big cue for today will be the RBI's monetary policy decision that will be due at 10 a.m. and what to expect from that. Well, we have Latha Venkatesh joining in to decode, as to what the governor may say and what we should be expecting from the policy statement this time around. Good morning, Latha. Great to have you on the show as always. Headline interest rates expected to remain unchanged, stance expected to remain unchanged. So, what is it that one should be watching from the monetary policy this time around?
Well, that's right. It's a status quo policy, but your headline, which you just said, was absolutely on the ball. People will be watching out for what their inflation forecasts are likely to be. The original inflation forecast, or the prevailing inflation forecast for July, August, September was 5.2%. But we now know that the July inflation is going to be like, 6.5%. So the average simply goes up. And even August, we know the vegetables prices, at least for the first half of August. So it looks like August will be another 6%. So they should be raising the 5.2 to something like 6%, the forecast. Likewise, the second half forecast, because the base moves up, will have to be upped. It's at the moment standing at 5.3. They may have to raise it to 5.4 or thereabouts. The year ahead inflation, that will be April, May, June of 24. That at the moment stands at 4.5. Will they raise that? So much will depend on how much they increase the forthcoming inflation numbers. They may well say that the base is so high that the year ahead inflation is low or likely to be low, and therefore we are going to look through the current inflation. If they say that, then the market will take it very dovish and we could have a bond rally. But it's unlikely that they will sound very dovish because there is a general food inflation scare. And therefore, a bit of hawkishness is likely. In any case, the yield market, the bond markets have factored in a goodish amount of hawkishness. The final point I want to make is that in any context, the reaction will be for the day. Because evening, we are going to get the US CPI numbers, and that will, take over in terms of impact.
Right. I also want to ask you that, RBI's growth forecast is higher than the market forecast. Market is penciling somewhere around 6 to 6.1%, but RBI has a growth target of 6.5%. And, a lot has changed since last policy. We have seen oil prices go up, of course, food inflation surging. At that point of time, inflation was surprising on the downside, but now it's the opposite. Would you say that there are chances, if not this policy, at least next couple of policies, is there a chance of any kind of downward revision to growth?
On the contrary, if anything, you should expect a higher. I mean, did you look at the tax collections? Tax collections net of refunds, direct taxes, are up 15.5%. Yeah. So their growth numbers are vindicated. You don't pay so much tax unless you expect so much profit or you have sold so much. So I don't think, of course, that is no indicator of the broad GDP. But I think everybody else started off at 5.5 and have moved towards 6.3. Yeah. It's Reserve Bank that is getting vindicated. Last 2 quarters in the US, the growth forecasts are way higher than what the forecast was. Even for the second quarter, April, May, June, In the US, forecast was 1.8, came at 2.4.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely growth in certain segments is still very robust. So the Reserve Bank is having the last laugh when it comes to growth. I just want to add a word on Bank Nifty.
Sure.
Just a mathematical point. The Bank Nifty benefits if interest rates are raised. That is, if the repo rate goes up, because many of their lending rates are linked to the repo rate. So they can immediately push up. They don't gain if the repo rate doesn't rise, but the talk is hawkish, and therefore bond yields rise. When bond yields rise, the bonds they are holding becomes cheaper. So they have mark-to-market losses. That's the connect. Remember, if there is a rate hike, very good for bonds, very good for banks. But if there is no rate hike and only pushing of the yields up, then they lose.
Okay. Last question to you. Anything aside of inflation forecast that one should be watching out for from the RBI governor's commentary as well as the Q&A? Would you look out for any kind of liquidity measures? Or
liquidity, you absolutely put your finger on it. What they say about liquidity could be important, because nowadays banks want some loose change. Loose change as in for the system it is 1 lakh crore. Because now there is 24 hours NEFT, 24 hours GPay. So they want enough money, loose cash, because transactions happen after the markets have ended, after they can borrow from the Reserve Bank, after the windows close. So RBI should also expand its idea of what is extra liquidity. Extra liquidity, 1 lakh crore is not extra. 1 lakh plus whatever is there is only extra. At the moment, there's about 2.5 lakh crore of extra liquidity. But effectively, that is only 1 lakh crore. Now, if the Reserve Bank says, no, there's too much liquidity and we want to drain it, that will be taken as negative. And then people will want, there's a lot of confusion about where is the Russian money. If we have paid for the oil, did we pay it in dirhams? Did we pay in rupees and have they invested it in government securities? These smaller questions are there. I don't know how much the governor will allow us to ask, because we all get one question.
Yeah, that's true. But Latha, I think I won't keep you any further. I'll, you have to go to the RBI headquarters, and of course I'll touch base with you at 11 a.m. To decode the governor's comments and of course what he announces by way of inflation forecast and stuff. But thanks a lot for taking our time and joining in and telling us what to expect from the
Thank you for having me.
Time around. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, with that, let me also get on board our technical expert for today, Osho Krishan of Angel One is joining in on the show. Good morning, Osho. Good to have you on the show. Yesterday, towards the second half, or in fact, in the last hour of trade, we saw the Nifty stage a very smart comeback. In fact, we managed to reclaim that 19,600 mark. In fact, even the Bank Nifty, came off day's low, even though it ended in the negative territory. But where do you see these two, headline indices once the policy is out of the way today?
Very good morning, Nandita. Thank you for having me in the show. Well, now coming to the point of Nifty yesterday has seen a very smart recovery from the lows, as you have mentioned. That some ways implement that the bullish approach is still intact in the market. And looking at from past four to five trading sessions, we are witnessing some kind of hoverness or tentativeness in the market near the 21-day SMA. So that means on the technical levels, 19,680 and 19,700 is having a very strong resistance. And on the lower end, we are expecting the first pivotal support around 19,500. So until we breach down below 19,500, there should not be any sign of caution in the market. And on the higher end, once we breach the level of 19,700, then only we can regain the strength in the market to have the next leg of rally. So as of now, there is some kind of tentativeness that can be seen in market, and any breakthrough above or below the levels can only dictate the near-term trend. And also looking at the today's scenario where we are expecting a certain volatility post the RBI monetary policy, but as we have already calculated or expected that there won't be many major changes in the RBI monetary policy, so there can be a non-event day for the markets also. But if there will be anything related to the commentary, then we can see a very strong dictatorship in terms of trend, specifically in Bank Nifty, because Bank Nifty, looking on the technical charts, have broken down the trend of higher highs, higher lows. So that's a very negative development that can be seen. But on the higher end, if we breaches above the level of 45,200 on spot levels, then from there onwards, we can expect the regain in the counter. But even on the downside, 44,500 is a very crucial support zone. And once we breach down the levels of 44,500, then the technical chart can further disrupt to the lower levels of 44,000 and 43,800 in the short-term period.
Right, that's the view then on the headline indices. But let me also talk about the stock of the day today, Suzlon. Stock was up nearly 5% yesterday. In fact, it has been, gaining quite a bit over the last few months rather. It has launched a QIP issue to raise up to 2,000 crore rupees. Floor price, of course, has been set at 18.4 rupees per share. QIP base size is 1,500 crore rupees and oversubscription option of 500 crore rupees is also there. And the indicative issue price for the QIP is at 17.5 rupees per share. That's according to sources. And the QIP proceeds will be used for debt repayment and general corporate purposes. Suzlon, has been a great performer. We have a couple of queries also coming in on our feed where people want to know your thoughts on Suzlon. Rajiv Menon has written in and wants to understand what needs to be done with this stock. Should one continue to hold and perhaps, watch out for higher levels on this stock?
This counter has already rallied approximately more than 2 times from the lows of 7.5 zone. And as of now, what we are witnessing that there is some kind of consolidation or base formation in this counter near the levels of 17.5 to 18. That means on immediate basis, we can expect that there could be a further consolidation in counter towards the level of 17.5, and till it sustains above 17.5, then we can again witness some kind of further upside move for the immediate levels of 23 to 24. But that is on a very aggressive basis. As of now, already we have seen a very strong surge in this counter. So there can be some kind of profit booking or cool off that can happen in this counter. But till it sustains above 17.5, one should not be very cautious in this counter. Once it breaches down below levels of 17.5, then it will be better to keep a stop loss or exit your existing position. On the higher end, 20 will be the first target. 21 will be the first target, followed by 24.
Right, that's the view on Suzlon, and those are the levels to watch out for there. But before I move on to the brokerage call of the day, I want to get in your thoughts on Tech Mahindra. This stock has, I think, rallied somewhere around 10% just about in a matter of 10 days of August. We have a query coming in from Prabhu, wants to know your thoughts on Tech Mahindra or Infosys for the long term. Looking at the kind of up move we've seen on Tech Mahindra, would you advise investors to now look at a Tech Mahindra vis-a-vis some of the other larger peers like TCS and Infosys?
See, as of now in Tech Mahindra specifically have seen a very smart V-shaped recovery, because from the highs in the month of July where it has corrected was approximately around 1220 zone only. And from there onwards, we have seen a correction towards 1080, and again there has been 100% retracement on the higher end. So that means on technical basis, it is a very positive development in TechM. But obviously, because of the sudden rally from the levels of 1080, there can be some kind of profit booking or cool off in this counter. But look, coming to the question of whether to hold it from a medium to short term perspective, then definitely yes, because looking on the broader term perspective, the counter is hovering in a higher highs, higher lows pattern. So that means that is again a very positive construction on technical charts. So there will be a gradual up move. We are not very much aggressive in the IT counters as of now, but there will be slow and gradual up move. For immediate basis, we can expect the upside target in TechM towards 1320 to 1340. That is on a very short term basis. And on the downside, we are having a very strong support of 1160 to 1180. So if there will be any cool off or correction in this counter, then one should definitely try to add more counters or even fresh accumulation around the levels of 1180 to 1160 for immediate upside target of 1340 to 1360.
All right, those are the levels to watch out for on Tech Mahindra. Let me get in, the hot brokerage call of the day today. Then Bharat Forge. Post earnings, the stock saw a 7% up move in yesterday's session. In fact, this morning we have brokerages pretty much mixed on this stock. CLSA has downgraded the stock to underperform with the target price of 987 or thereabouts. It believes that the execution has been strong, but valuations remain a cause of concern. The company has seen a recovery in its European subsidiaries, which is a positive. And the order book is also strong for auto and defense over the next 2 to 3 years or thereabouts. But CLSA believes that valuations are a cause of concern. Morgan Stanley, on the other hand, has an overweight rating with a target price of 1,028 rupees per share. And Jefferies has an underperformed rating, target price raised to 750 rupees per share. And even Jefferies says that, cyclical headwinds in exports and rich valuations remain a concern for Bharat Forge. But the kind of up move that the stock has seen yesterday, would you say maybe it's time to take some partial profits? Or would you say that, just stay put and wait for the stock to reach 1,000 rupees before you book your profits?
See, as of now, Bharat Forge has seen a very smart or a very strong recoup from the levels of 750, 760 odd zone. And from there onwards, it has been hovering in the cycle of higher highs, higher lows. Recently, it has given a breakout around the levels of 900. And obviously, in the yesterday's session, we have seen a very huge traction on volume basis. So that on technical perspective have seen a very strong breakout, and one can expect the breakout or the rally to continue towards immediate target of 990 to 1000 zone. But again, 1000 being a psychological mark can provide a very strong hurdle in this counter. But even looking at the technical setup, one can try to accumulate this counter around the levels of, even if there will be some kind of cool off in futures also, then 920 to 940 is the zone where one should try to accumulate this for the immediate target of 990. And overall, technical structure wise, it is looking very positive, and one can expect the rally to continue from short to medium term perspective.
Right, that's the view on Bharat Forge then. Let me take up a query on Indigo. This one is coming in from Nisha Pradeep, wants to know your thoughts on this stock. Now, earnings are pretty good, but there are concerns over low yields and, of course, resurgence in crude prices as well. The stock has done fairly okay over the last 5 sessions, up somewhere around 2.5% or thereabouts, and it is moving towards the 52-week highs as well. So what would you advise an investor to do with this stock now?
The Indigo is currently in the basis of price-wise correction, because once we have seen a breakout around the levels of 2100 zone, then from there onwards it has seen a very significant rally towards 2740 odd levels. Then from there onwards, after the rallying of 600, 650 odd points, the counter has to underwent some profit booking or cool off. So this profit booking should be considered healthy once you are in a bullish market. Overall, the trend in this counter is very much bullish, and one can expect that any breather coming in this counter towards the level of even 2400 or 2350 should be acting as a very strong support from short to medium term perspective. So overall, the outlook technically is very positive. On the technical parameters also, the counter has seen a very positive crossover after being cooling off from the overbought zone. So that means overall, structure wise and technical parameters wise, this counter is looking very positive. On the higher end, 2740 should be the immediate target. And once we breach those levels, then from there onwards, we can see another 52-week high coming very shortly in this counter.
All right. Hope that answers your query on Indigo. But before I take up any more queries, I want to get in your thoughts on Zee, Osho. Numbers came out yesterday. Profits have tanked somewhere around 90% or thereabouts on the back of an exceptional loss. You have revenues that have grown over 7.5%. Subscription revenues have also gone up, and advertising revenues have seen a drop on a YY basis. But brokerages believe that the merger with Sony, of course, will be the next catalyst for the stock. And there is a NCLT verdict expected in the Zee-Sony merger case today. So what are the immediate targets you'll be looking out for on Zee, given the fact that the stock has seen a very good rally over the last 1 month?
See, overall, looking at the broader perspective, then this counter is definitely in a corrective phase. But in short run, yes, we have seen a very strong rally from the levels of 180 towards 240 odd levels. But looking at the overall view, the lower lows, lower bottom pattern in this counter is intact on broader time frame. As of now, after the rally that we have seen in the recent period, one can expect some cool off in this counter. There can be some kind of volatility related to the news and outcome that we have seen. But overall, structure wise, the technical setup is still on the sidelines to negative. So any breach above the zone of 290 will give a very strong bullish movement. So till then, we are having a very sideways or negative trend in this counter. And any resistance, as of now, the first resistance is placed around 255 to 260. So that should be considered as a very strong resistance. And on the downside, 210 is the immediate support zone. So the counter is expected to hover within the range. And coming on the technical parameters, the counter is already on the overbought position. So from here onwards, one should not be very much aggressive on the long side. Once we get the opportunity towards 255, 260, then from there onwards, one can expect some kind of cool off towards the zone of 210 on immediate basis.
All right, that's the view on Z then. Very quickly, the next query is coming in from Manisha Aditya. Wants to know your thoughts on Voltas, and she wants to know the right price to buy into the stock. Over the last month or so, Voltas has made a very smart comeback from lows. In fact, it's up 11%, and even over the last 5 days, it's up 5% or thereabouts. Would you say that this is the right time to buy into it, or should one, wait for some kind of a dip to get into this counter?
See, looking on the technical perspective, this counter has finally sustained the 200-day SMA on daily chart after the fall which it has witnessed in the April month 2022. So finally, for the first time, it has recouped from the lows and has sustained above the zone of 200-day SMA. So that is again a very positive development in this counter. But no doubt the rally has been on a very vertical moves from the levels of 760 towards 850 as of now. But even though we are expecting that 880 to 890 should be the first target that one can expect in this counter. Once it breaches the level of 900 psychological mark, then from there onwards, we can see a double bottom formation in this counter. But for short-term perspective, 890 should be the first target, and further addition should be done only if it breaches the zone of 900. So overall, we are expecting more 30 to 40 points in this counter. Once it breaches those levels, then again we have to review the same counter.
All right, that's the view on Voltas. Hope that answers your query. But let me also take up a query on DB Corp. This one has also been sort of a breakout stock, so to say. And Mohammad Imraj wants to know your thoughts for swing trading on this counter. What would you advise him to do?
See, overall, this counter has been very strongly has been on the bullish side. So looking at the overall technical perspective, this counter has already been in the overbought position. So we should not be very much complacent with the upside move and should not be very much aggressive also. As of now, if there will be any correction towards the zone of 210, then one should try to accumulate this counter. Or else, if you want to have a very swing trade in this counter, then 224 should be the first levels where you should try to accumulate this counter, keeping a strict stop loss of 210. From medium-term perspective, one should try to accumulate in a staggered manner, should not go very strongly buy in this counter. One should have 10% with every fall towards the zone of 200, 210 from short to medium-term perspective.
All right, I think we just about have time for one more query. This one is on RBL Bank. Saurabh wants to know whether it's the right time to enter ahead of the RBI policy. RBL Bank, we know that M&M has, of course, picked up a stake in this stock. Ever since the last 1 month, it has gained somewhere around 20% or thereabouts. But for a positional play, ahead of the RBI policy, would you advise him to buy into this?
See, overall, looking from the perspective of that what will happen after the RBI policy meet, then there won't be very much significant movement in RBL Bank. But looking on the technical perspective, yes, one can accumulate this counter again in a staggered manner, so 40% at current levels. And if the dip comes towards the zone of 190, then one should try to have a very aggressive buying position in this counter. Overall, the technical structure is positive. Only way that we can expect that there has been a strong rally from the levels of 140. So technical parameters have already entered the hovering within the overbought position. So one should try to have a very decent price-wise or time-wise correction. That's why 190 I have suggested that if the dip comes towards 190, then one should deploy the 100% capital for this counter. And on the higher end, we can expect the upside target of 250 on immediate basis, followed by 280 from medium-term perspective.
All right, that's the view on RBL Bank. Then this wraps up our query segment for today. We are running out of time, but Osho, before I let you go, any stock recommendations for viewers this morning?
Yes, I have one buy call in defense counter. HAL is looking very positive. Approximately 3,820 is the current market price in which it has closed yesterday's session. So one should try to accumulate this counter in the zone of 3,800 to 3,820 because it has seen a very strong base setup around the zone of 37.20 zone. So one should try to accumulate at the current levels, or even if dip comes of 10-15 points, with strict stop loss of 37.40, and one should expect a target of 39.20 on the first target and the other target of 39.60 on positional basis, let's say 2 to 3 trading sessions. So one can expect a decent move in HAL, and also the outcome is pending in this counter. So one can expect that it should be in the favor of counter, and one can expect a very strong up move in HAL.
All right, those are the stock recommendations coming in from Osho. With that, Osho, thanks a lot for taking out time and joining in this morning, and of course also addressing all our viewer queries.
Thank you so much.
Well, with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Morning Trade. But before I go, let me remind our viewers that 10 a.m. is when the RBI governor will be issuing his statement. And of course, we'll be watching out for the rate decision, change in stance, and of course, his commentary on inflation as well. We'll be getting you live coverage of that and a post-policy analysis with a whole host of guests. So don't forget to tune in for that. But for now, it's a goodbye from me. Thanks a lot for watching. Stay tuned to Money Control for more news and updates.